Property taxes are not fixed. Most people assume they pay what the previous owner paid or something close to it. That assumption can cost you thousands of dollars in the first year alone. Here's what nobody tells you. In many counties across the country, when a property sells, it triggers a full reassessment, meaning the county recalculates what the home is worth right now and taxes it at that new value. The person who sold you the house may have been paying taxes based on what that home was worth 20 years ago. You will not. The year after you close, the new bill arrives at the current market value. 76% of homeowners in 2026 say their property tax bill exceeded what they budgeted for when they bought. That gap doesn't show up on the listing. It doesn't show up in your loan estimate. It shows up in your mailbox after you've already moved in. Before you make an offer, call the county assessor's office and ask specifically whether a sale triggers reassessment. The answer determines what you'll actually owe, not what the seller has been paying. The number on the listing is not your number. Insurance surge. You budgeted for homeowners insurance. You got a quote, it looked reasonable, and you moved on. That quote is not a guarantee. Most people treat insurance like a fixed expense, something you lock in and forget. Here's the thing. Homeowners insurance premiums have risen 46% since 2021. The national average is now approaching $3,000 per year. In Florida, it's nearing $8,500 annually, and in some coastal counties, insurers are leaving the market entirely. What makes this a trap is the delivery mechanism. Insurance is typically bundled into your monthly escrow payment, the account your lender controls that collects money each month to cover your taxes and insurance on your behalf. When your premium goes up at renewal, your lender adjusts your escrow and your monthly payment increases. You find out when the statement arrives. You're already in the house. Before you close, ask your lender for a worst-case escrow adjustment scenario. Ask what a 30 or 40% premium increase would do to your monthly payment. Run that number against your actual budget, not your approval ceiling. The quote you got is what insurance costs today. Tomorrow is a different policy year. Maintenance. Nobody puts it in the brochure, but owning a home means the home will eventually need you to pay for things you did not plan to pay for. Everyone assumes maintenance is occasional and manageable. A leaky faucet here, a paint job there. Here's the part most people miss. National data puts average annual hidden ownership costs above $21,000, with maintenance alone averaging nearly $9,000 per year. That is not a renovation budget. That is the baseline cost of keeping a standard house functional. There's a rule of thumb in real estate called the 1% rule. Budget 1% of your home's purchase price every year for maintenance and repairs. On a $350,000 home, that's $3,500 annually set aside before anything breaks. It sounds conservative until the roof, the HVAC, your heating and cooling system, and the plumbing fail in the same calendar year, because they don't schedule their failures around your finances. If you're buying without a maintenance reserve, money sitting in savings specifically for the house, you're not prepared to own it. That's not an opinion. That's what the repair bill is going to tell you. Homeownership transfers the cost of every broken thing directly to you. HOA assessments. An HOA, a homeowners association, is the governing body for a neighborhood, condominium complex, or planned community that collects monthly fees and enforces community rules. You see the monthly fee at closing. That's not the only charge. Most people assume that the HOA fee is the full picture. A fixed monthly number, predictable, easy to budget. Here's where it gets interesting. There is a second type of charge called a special assessment, a one-time fee levied on every homeowner in the community to cover major repairs or capital expenses that the HOA's regular budget cannot absorb. A new roof on a shared building, repaved roads, a failed elevator in a condo tower. When those costs arrive and the reserve fund, the money the HOA has set aside for exactly these situations, isn't sufficient, the bill gets divided among the owners. It can arrive with 30 days notice. There is no negotiation. Before you close on any property with an HOA, request the Reserve Fund Study, a formal report that shows how much money the association has saved versus how much it should have. A severely underfunded HOA is a future assessment waiting to happen. The monthly fee is what you expect to pay. The assessment is what you have to pay. PMI trap. Private mortgage insurance, PMI, is a monthly fee added to your mortgage payment when your down payment is less than 20% of the purchase price. It protects the lender if you default, not you, the lender. Most people who pay PMI assume it disappears automatically once they've built up enough equity, meaning once the portion of the home they actually own reaches 20% of its value. Here's the part that matters. It doesn't go away on its own. Federal law allows you to request cancellation when your equity reaches 20%, but you have to make the request in writing. And your lender uses their own appraisal to confirm you've hit that threshold, not Zillow, not your own estimate. PMI typically runs between $50 and $250 per month depending on your loan size and credit score. On a $400,000 home with 5% down, you could pay over $150 a month for years before anyone reminds you that you're eligible to cancel it. Request cancellation the moment you believe you've crossed 20%. Then follow up. You are paying a fee every month that builds no equity and earns no return, and the clock stops only when you make it stop. Overborrowing. The bank approved you for $450,000. That number feels like permission. It is not. Everyone treats their approval ceiling, the maximum loan amount a lender will authorize based on your income, debt, and credit, as the right number to build a budget around. Here's the thing. Lenders approve you up to the point where default risk is acceptable to them. That is not the same calculation as the point where you can absorb a property tax increase, an insurance surge, a roof replacement, and 1 month of reduced income, all in the same year. Because all of those things can happen. The metric lenders use is called the debt-to-income ratio, DTI, which measures how much of your gross monthly income goes toward debt payments. They allow a DTI as high as 43%, sometimes higher. What they do not measure is how little margin that leaves you after the mortgage, the maintenance, the taxes, and the actual cost of your life. Buying at the ceiling of your approval isn't ambition. It's the elimination of every financial buffer you have. The bank gets paid first. Everything that goes wrong after that is your problem, not theirs. ARM reset. An adjustable rate mortgage, ARM, is a home loan where the interest rate is fixed for an initial period, then adjusts periodically based on a market index. Lenders offer them because the starting rate is lower than a fixed-rate mortgage. That lower rate is real. What comes after it is also real. Most people who take an ARM focus on the initial payment. Here's what nobody tells you. That rate is fixed for a set number of years, typically 5 or 7, and then it resets annually. The new rate is tied to a financial index, meaning it moves with broader interest rate conditions, not with your income or your budget. In a rising rate environment, that reset can add hundreds of dollars to your monthly payment overnight. You agreed to that adjustment when you signed the loan documents. On a $300,000 ARM loan, a 2 percentage point rate increase adds roughly $330 per month to your payment, permanently until you refinance, which requires qualifying all over again at whatever rates exist at that moment. If you have an ARM and you're within 2 years of your first adjustment date, understand exactly what index your rate is tied to and what a 1, 2, or 3 percentage point increase does to your monthly payment. Closing surprises. 3 days before you hand over the largest check of your life, your lender is required to send you a document called the closing disclosure, a detailed breakdown of every cost, fee, and prepaid item involved in the transaction. Most people skim it. Some people don't open it until they're sitting at the closing table. Everyone assumes the number at closing matches what they planned for months earlier. Here's the part that matters. The closing disclosure can differ from the loan estimate, the preliminary cost summary you received early in the process. Prepaid items, things like homeowners insurance paid up front, property taxes deposited into escrow, and prepaid mortgage interest, can push the cash due at closing several $1,000s above what you expected. Last-minute lender fees can appear, and you have 3 days to respond. Not 3 weeks. 3 days on a $350,000 purchase with a typical closing cost range of 2 to 5%, the cash needed at closing could land anywhere between $7,000 and $17,500. If the final disclosure comes in at the high end and you budgeted for the low end, you have 72 hours to find the difference. Read the closing disclosure the day it arrives, line by line, not the morning of closing. 3 days sounds like enough time. It isn't. Empty reserves. Closing day is the most expensive day of the buying process. It is also, for most buyers, the day their savings account hits its lowest point. Most people feel the relief of closing and assume the hard financial part is over. Here's the part most people miss. Average emergency home repair spending now exceeds $1,100. Most households don't have that amount in accessible savings after closing, after the down payment, the closing costs, and the moving expenses have cleared. The first time the furnace dies or a pipe bursts in January, the repair goes on a credit card at 22% interest, on top of a mortgage that was already stretching the budget. That is not a worst-case scenario. That is the median situation for first-time buyers within 12 months of closing. Financial planners recommend keeping 3 to 6 months of housing expenses in liquid savings, meaning cash you can access immediately, not a retirement account you'd pay penalties to touch before and after you buy. Most buyers treat that as a goal for later. Later becomes the repair bill. You need a reserve before you close, not after the first thing breaks. Buying a house with empty savings doesn't mean you own a home. It means the house owns you. Rental risk. You found a property, ran the numbers, and the mortgage payment works as long as a tenant is paying rent every month. Most people treat rental income as income. Here's the thing. It's an assumption. The tenant gives notice. The tenant stops paying and the eviction process in your state takes 4 months. The short-term rental platform you were counting on changes its local regulations. 1 vacancy, 1 non-paying tenant, 1 policy change, and the payment that required rental income to be feasible is now entirely yours. The mortgage doesn't pause. The property tax doesn't pause. The insurance doesn't pause. If you cannot afford the full monthly payment without rental income, you did not qualify for this property. The bank may have approved the loan based on projected rental income. Lenders sometimes count a portion of expected rent toward your qualifying income, but approval is not the same as financial soundness. The market does not care why the tenant is gone. Before you count rental income in your budget, ask yourself what month 3 of vacancy looks like. Not month 1, when you're optimistic. Month 3, when the unit is still empty and you've paid the mortgage twice from savings. If that number doesn't work, the purchase doesn't work.